David Penn here, coming to you from the studios of Free People Radio in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, taking a short overview of a very critical issue which we've been talking about and podcasting about on the Professor Penn podcast and posting about on X at Prof Penn podcast, and that is the naming by the Department of Homeland Security of 20 Minnesota counties as sanctuary counties. This is a big deal, a very big deal. It's a signature part of President Trump's domestic agenda that would be expelling from our country people that are here illegally, particularly right now focused on the criminals among us, And the labeling of these 20 counties as sanctuary counties had a purpose, and here's what the purpose was. The sheriffs and the law enforcement officials in these counties, from the perspective of Department of Homeland Security, have not been cooperating with ICE in removing these criminals from amongst our midst. So what the Trump administration has done is named these counties and is now threatening law enforcement in these counties with the withholding of funds that are necessary for these law enforcement agencies to run their operations. Right in the middle of this naming of Minnesota counties as sanctuaries, there was a very important confrontation between ICE, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and Minneapolis Police and local protesters who are opposed to ICE coming in and removing what they would consider members of their community from the city of Minneapolis. Let's look at a clip from local news.
Chaos and confusion as a crowd clashed with federal law officers during a raid in South Minneapolis this afternoon. FBI agents in fatigues had to get escorted out of that area by local law enforcement for their own safety. We have team coverage on this developing story, starting with WCCO's Reg Chapman and photojournalist Chris Cruz, who got caught in the middle of the chaos.
It was a little before noon when people who live near Bloomington Avenue and Lake Streets noticed federal agents gathering near a business there. They quickly called for people to show up, and they did.
I don't think they realized the community would respond so quick and kind of create a human barrier. So you can kind of see them strategizing a plan to get people out.
Within minutes, a crowd grew, and so did their calls for Minneapolis police and Hennepin County Sheriff deputies there on scene to leave.
The Minneapolis police should not be working with federal agents. We are a sanctuary city. The community will not allow it.
Federal agents with big vehicles and guns on Lake Street.
Yeah, just instantly, got violent, and, people started trying to stop them.
The crowd moved whatever they could in the path of officers and deputies as they escorted federal agents down Lake Street. Some threw garbage cans. Tires were also thrown. We saw pop bottles and bricks hurled at law enforcement. And some responded with force.
Yeah, I got pepper sprayed a few times.
Protesters thought this was some sort of immigration raid, but in a statement, Mayor Fry said this incident was related to a criminal search warrant for drugs and money laundering and was not related to immigration enforcement. No arrests were made. He says MPD's only role was helping with crowd control and keeping the community safe. Whatever was going on, many in the crowd say some who were sent in to keep communities safe were aggressive.
As we saw them come back and assist by taping off the area and putting up police lines and pushing the community back.
With photojournalist Chris Cruz, Reg Chapman, WCCO News.
Within the past 2 hours, we learned a new Homeland Security task force headed up that operation. Our Adam Duxter picks up our team coverage from the newsroom. Adam, what have you found out?
Yeah, Frank, they said this is the first of those in Minnesota under the Homeland Security Task Force umbrella. In a statement, Homeland Security said federal investigators conducted a groundbreaking criminal operation, which they say marks a new chapter in how they confront complex, multidimensional threats. We asked what that meant, but they did not respond for our request for comment. We also just got this picture that shows, or appears to show, agents outside of a second location of that same restaurant. This was taken in Bloomington this morning. but nothing like the show of force here in Minneapolis. This operation happened in one of the most densely populated immigrant neighborhoods in the entire state of Minnesota. People there say seeing the large armored cars in law enforcement with guns, seemingly with no advance warning, sends a message of fear. Immigrant advocates say the community today is struggling to figure out how to react.
A lot of people's doors were locked. Businesses they're locking up because they're afraid. What are they looking for? Why are they here? And they don't know. If the city says they're a sanctuary city and the police doesn't work with ICE, because they went on the news and said they don't work with ICE, why were they here today? Why were they helping them?
Why were they there today? Well, the naming of Hennepin County in Minneapolis as a sanctuary county and a sanctuary city had some teeth to it. The Trump administration, as I said, is threatening to withhold funds from Hennepin County, which are funds used by the Hennepin County Sheriff and other law enforcement to run their operations. So when this activist asked, why was the Minneapolis Police Department there? It's because they're threatened with the withholding of funds necessary to their budget. President Trump and his team are not kidding around about this. There are 20-some counties like this in Minnesota. And all of these counties, I think if I remember correctly, their total budget is something like $9 billion a year. That's an estimate, and it's based on the best research I could do. Federal funds that are given to these counties for education, healthcare, law enforcement, you total it all up, it's like $500 million. It's about 11% of the county budgets is dedicated towards taking care and dealing with this influx of illegal aliens that are in our state. This is a business. I object to this for two reasons. First reason is these are human beings. Who brought them here? Why are they here? Why was the border opened? Why are they being exploited? Human beings that are on the margins of society, that cannot work, that can't go to school easily, people that are struggling to survive. Why were they brought here? Who brought them here? That's one problem that I have, because this didn't happen by accident. This was very intentional. And now that they're here, these illegal aliens have become part of government. 11% of county budgets is dedicated to dealing with these people. 11%, that's a huge number. We're talking $500 million. What does government do? Government takes money from one group of people and gives it to another. And the government workers in between those two groups earn a commission, their salaries, for transferring that money. Well, when threatened with the loss of their money, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office and the Minneapolis Police Department gave up their commitment to maintaining Hennepin County as a sanctuary and joined ICE in this effort. Now, one final comment, and I don't know for sure. There was no arrests. The mayor said this was not an immigration enforcement action. What was really going on here? Well, the police came out in force. ICE came out in force. They were able to see who met them with resistance. They were able to gauge the support, the potential violent support that might be encountered when they go to remove people from the community. Every one of these citizens that were in this protest, if they had a cell phone, they're now tagged and surveilled. I think. I don't know for sure, but this looked to me like reconnaissance. ICE wanted to find out if the Hennepin County Sheriff would show up, and they did. They wanted to know if the Minneapolis Police Department would show up, and they did. And they wanted to know how many protesters would show up, and they did. This was a reconnaissance mission, in my opinion. It is a portend of things to come in the future that could get very intense for Minneapolis. We all remember what happened here the last time President Trump was in charge. President Trump remembers Minneapolis may find itself at the epicenter of conflict in the summer of 2025. Thank you very much for joining, and I'll see you soon again.